Okay, guys. Hi, happy Wednesday. For those of you who are in the Southern Hemisphere, I just wanted to talk to you the importance of tracking your cycle today, why that is so important in terms of hormonal health, and why it's not just about getting pregnant or not getting pregnant, but there's a lot more to it. And when I'm working with someone and going, okay, if they've got hormonal issues, ovulation or their cycle or their period can tell me a lot. And so I just want to walk you through some of the importance of that so you can really understand that, and then talk also a little bit about what you need to look out for when you are actually tracking your cycle, and some easy hacks to go about that. And I'm really surprised actually by the amount of women who don't track their cycle or are vague about it. I think it's becoming more common now. And I think a lot of women, if they're then going to fall pregnant, they'll start tracking it, but they might not still be tracking it to the level that they need to be tracking it, and they don't totally get what it means. And it's taken me, you know, I can attest to this, you know, particularly in my 20s, I didn't really get it at all. Also, for a lot of that time, I was on the pill, and you don't ovulate even when you're on the pill at all, and your period's a fake period, and you are going according to the pack. So when you come off, you've got all this whole, like, for me, I had this whole new world to learn, really, and I also didn't get taught it at school. I didn't get taught about cycles and tracking. It was just like, you get your period, here's a tampon or a pad, this is what you got to do. There was no talk about anything else. Not that I remember. I just remember it's like the super basics. And so I'm like, you know, as I've grown through this process, and I'm like, why is this not being taught in schools? Why are we not teaching women different phases of a cycle, and understanding the importance of our cycle, and how we can utilize our strengths and our brain function, all of that. I'm really passionate about that. So today I just want to go through actually tracking your cycle and what it can mean. So if you've got any comments as we go along, please comment. If you're watching the replay, please do a hashtag replay. Hi, Elizabeth. Nice to see you. I'll just have this open so I've got the comments. All right, so ovulation. So first of all, I want you to think about an egg. Now, an egg is like a chicken egg. The yolk is like this element of goodness. Everything that is inside a chicken egg is everything that is needed to grow the chicken. Just think about that. So that's why the yolk is so full of nourishing goodness, because that's what all the nutrients are stored in the egg. Chicken egg, duck egg, whatever. Love duck eggs. If you haven't tried a duck egg, by the way, if you can get your hands on duck egg, like, do duck egg. But think about an egg is goodness. Now, we are the same. Like, what is in our egg is a whole heap of goodness. And we also need lots of different things in our body to grow a baby. And so if we don't have those things, those nutrients, those vitamins and minerals to grow a baby, there will be problems. As well as if we don't feel safe, because we're biologically programmed to only be able to reproduce when we are safe and when the conditions are right. So if we're in a heightened state of stress, if there's a famine, which is another form of stress, so in other words, if we don't have enough fat on our bodies, if our life is at risk, meaning high levels of cortisol, reproducing is not going to be a priority. It's like survival is a priority from the way our bodies are built. So you got to understand that actually then, okay, ovulation is actually a real form of like fertility. It's like the ultimate, you know, think of fertile land, or, you know, the feminine it's the ultimate form of abundance and the ultimate form of abundance, affinity, the universe, like creation, energy. And so fertility is, over the years, you know, through history, is always a symbolism of abundance and good health. And the reason for that is, you know, you can think of fertile land. There's lots of things that are produced, like there's so many things that come out of that just based on a fertile egg. And it you know, to say that land, you know, use, I'm thinking like biblical days. I don't really know why. Maybe it's, you know, when I was brought up in Sunday school, but thinking about, you know, when we're not in a drought, when there's lots of rain, the land is green, the soils are rich, you know, you've got a beautiful ecosystem going on, there's lots of food. And if you go back to primal days when we weren't, you know, living in agricultural society, you know, there's food in the forest, there's berries. When there's a lot of rain, the animals eat more grass, there's more fat. So we eat more foods that are higher in carbohydrate, we have more fat in our body, we're safer, right? And so this is the same thing, reason why if women lose too much weight, they won't ovulate, it's a sign of health. It's the same. So we've got to be safe and we've got to be in that right balance, not too much weight, not too little weight. And they've got to be all the nutrients that are required to keep that baby alive, right? And so it is our report card. Ovulation is really important to know because it symbolizes health. It can tell us so much, and the length of your cycle, if you're ovulating, when you're ovulating, how long your cycle is, how long each phase is, how your period shows up, tells us so much about your health, about inflammation in the body, about how our livers are working, how our our digestion's working, all of it, right? So it's really, really, really important. And so measuring your cycle is not just about, okay, knowing if you're like trying not to get pregnant. Obviously that's a big, or to get pregnant. That for a lot of people, a lot of women is important, but there's so much more to it that I just want to, you know, really highlight the importance of it. And so I've used this analogy before. The way your period turns up is also an indicator of our health. And you can look back a few months and go, okay, well, how have I been? How have I been looking after myself for a few months, last few months? How much stress has there been in my body? Now, how is my period showing up? And it will be a reflection on what's happened in the last few months. It takes 100 days for an egg to fully release and go through the process before it releases. So it grows. And so what we do in those 100 days prior to ovulation, particularly when we're talking about pregnancy, is also really important. That's why I'm like, it's a report card of how it shows up. And this is something important. If you're watching this and you're like, I want to fall pregnant, think about, you need to have a couple of good, really healthy cycles. This is, and I'm digressing a little bit, but of 100 days, okay, that's a couple of months. That's like 3 and a bit months. So I usually say 6 months. It's like 2 ovulation cycles before trying to fall pregnant, where you're really like nourishing the body and before you fall pregnant, because it takes 100 days. And so even if you don't have a period, remember it takes 100 days. So what you're doing now is going to affect it. If you've gone off the pill, what you're doing now is going to affect ovulation in a few months down the track, and it's going to take time. That's another story. So it's really important to know. Track your cycle. If you're not having a period, it's a little harder, but you can also still track your symptoms like mucus, fertile mucus and stuff, or mucus in general as well. So normal cycle, it's basically like a house guest. And so you can have 2 types of house guests. You can have this really functional adult that's like the perfect house guest. They come, they arrive, they bring food, they clean up after themselves. You know, they're just a nice house guest. They turn like drama free. They just arrive. It's not a big deal. They're really easy house guests. You know, people that stay, and it's just like, you're just a pleasure to have around. It's easy. In contrast to the wounded child or the dramatic teenager that turns up and there's drama and they're very, you know, like it's painful to have them around, or maybe it's like living with a teenager and there's just drama, there's pain, there's inflammation, there's all of that. So that's the analogy I like to use. So a healthy period is part of tracking your cycle and going, okay, what are my symptoms? How long does it last? What's the flow like? All of that, because that tells us a lot. Ovulation tells us a lot. So we need to know when we're ovulating and look at the signs and symptoms. And so these are the important things. So there's different phases of our cycle. There's actually 4 phases. The follicular phase is leading up. So just to get some clarity too, a lot of women, I say, how long's your cycle? And they're like, 5 days. I'm like, no, that's your period. How long's your cycle? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Okay, so you want to know your actual cycle is from the first day of your period, which technically is, from a technical point of view, not right. I think it should be from the last, but then it's wishy-washy. So they've always measured it from the first day of the bleed because it's so distinct that it's easy to distinguish. First day of your period right through to the very end. And that's usually, a normal cycle is anywhere from 21 to 23 to about 35 days. So it can vary, okay? So there's the follicular phase, there's ovulation. So follicular phase means when the egg is ripening. Ovulation is obviously when the egg bursts out of the ovaries and you're fertile. And then there's the luteal phase. And the luteal phase is usually what varies, and it can be anywhere from 10 to 16 days. And there's lots of different reasons for this. So there and then there's also your period where you bleed and the lining of your uterus sheds. Okay, so they're the 4 phases. I often have spoken about this previously, 2 different seasons. So your winter is your period, your spring is your follicular phase, your summer is ovulation, your autumn is luteal phase, and you have different needs at each phase. You're going to be more social, more active out there. When you ovulate, it's your summer. Your period is a bit more your winter. It's time to rest, recharge, maybe not be as social, just be a little bit calmer. And if you want more info on this, I go into this in detail. I've done webinars, I've done all sorts of things on this. Make a comment below and I'll get it to you. But understanding that we've got different needs, we've got different biochemistry at different phases. And unlike men who have a 24-hour cycle clock, we have a 28 or a 35-day or a 25-day clock that has different seasons, and there's hormones at different levels, okay? And when our winter is here, our healthy period, it shows up drama-free, it causes no pain. PMS period pain are common but not normal. I say this again and again and again. I'll say it again. Period pain and PMS is common but not normal. And if you have period pain or PMS symptoms, so mooding, bloating, pain, sore breasts, really sore tender breasts, like irritability, like want to kill someone. And there's different variations of this, and understanding that you're going to be different at different times versus turning into an evil, crazy woman a week before your period and people, like no one in your family wanting to be around you. That's very different to feeling a bit more tender and knowing you've got to slow down, right? So common, but not normal. Same with heavy periods. Common, but not normal. It tells us a lot. So then when our period turns up, it should be drama-free. The flow should be red. There shouldn't be any big clots, like no bigger than like your pinky finger. It should stay from anywhere from 3 to 7 days. And then it leaves to return the same time each month, right? The next time, next month. That's a healthy period. Ovulation, again, is, and like I was saying, you can still get your period and not ovulate. And this is the thing that's when you're on the pill is really confusing, is you actually don't ovulate when you're on the pill. Your hormones go completely offline. And so it's not an indicator, like you're not making your own progesterone. You know, you're not making any of your own hormones basically. And you're reliant on the synthetic hormone. And basically then your pituitary gland stops working and there's no communication between pituitary gland and your ovaries. And so then there's problems. That's why there's problems when people come off the pill, because it's got to wake back up. Okay. And I'm not going to talk about other forms of contraception because I don't want to talk about that in this session, but just to give you an idea. So it's not an indicator of real health. Okay. So where am I up to? So when we have the follicular phase, we think the eggs peaking or starting to ripen, call it ripening. There's a hormone called estradiol, and that helps the egg release, and it helps also thicken the uterine lining. Okay, the more estradiol, the thicker the lining, and this is what makes that fertile mucus. So we should actually get like a fertile mucus. It's like a sticky egg white raw around ovulation. Technically it's before ovulation, but you might not see it till after. So what also happens is during ovulation is actually our temperature jumps a little bit. And anyone that's been trying to fall pregnant, or you know women that are trying to fall pregnant at some stage, they're always measuring the temperature because they want to know when they're ovulating. I think this is really important in general because it gives us a lot of indicators around our own health, and we can also tell from a contraception point of view, all of that, when we are fertile and if we are ovulating, etc. Okay, and then, however, some women can have a second ovulation, and this is potentially because they are not making enough progesterone and the estrogen, the estradiol is high. So there can be this confusion around that as well, which is why just relying on that alone is not always a good, accurate measure. And this is why tracking your symptoms is really important. Your fertile mucus, your symptoms, if you've got skin issues, like when are you breaking out? Is it ovulation, or is it just before your period or during your period? Have you got digestive issues? Is it before your period? Is it during your period? Have you got bloating? Is it related to your period as well, or is it just digestive? And so all of these will tell us. Now, here's a little thing. I'll give you an example. A lot of women will experience change in bowel movements before their period. And this is due to an increase in prostaglandins, which is an inflammatory response. And then we will get a change in bowel movements. So either constipation or diarrhea. A lot of women will get diarrhea. So that is inflammation. So potentially, if you're getting a lot of those symptoms, you've also got inflammation. Same with PMS, but it's also estrogen dominance. Not enough progesterone, too much estrogen, not balanced. And so in the luteal phase after ovulation, we then have this phase where we should have higher progesterone to hold that egg in place. And basically hold the lining in place and hope, your body hopes, you might not hope, that it will become, I've lost the word, inseminated. And then you'll be able to create a baby. But if you don't have enough progesterone, you may not hold the pregnancy because by that point, the placenta isn't making progesterone in that first trimester. You need enough progesterone. So this is why progesterone is really, really, really important, but it also balances out estrogen. I always harp on about progesterone, right? It's the good, feel good. And progesterone is like the calming hormone. It's anti-inflammatory, so really important for PMS symptoms. It builds muscle, it promotes sleep, so it converts our neurotransmitters into GABA, which is a sleep neurotransmitter, or help a calming neurotransmitter. It calms the nervous system and it counterbalances estrogen. So we've got too much estrogen. estrogen dominance is an indicator of our liver not working, and then there's this other factor of our bowels and potentially our digestion not working properly, usually go hand in hand, as well as environmental toxins, hence putting a load on a liver, which mimic estrogen in the body. And then we get this reaction of estrogen dominance. So there's this combination of things going on. And we need enough progesterone to counterbalance that. That's really, 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 really important. So length tells us a lot. Timing tells us a lot. And if you're having any type of issue, this is a really good place to start. It's a really great place to go, okay, let's just start tracking my cycle. How long is it? Am I ovulating? Can I measure my temperature? What's my period like? What are my symptoms like? When am I getting my symptoms? All of that. It all gives us clues on what's happening. How long is each phase? What's going on? Maybe we need to look at this. Maybe we need to look at that. I'm thinking of it just purely from my perspective. But this is the importance part of it. And it really is a sign of good health. You're not going to create a healthy baby if you are not healthy. You may create a baby, but it might not be healthy. Or you are not going to feel your best if you're not ovulating, because for us to ovulate and be really like have a healthy cycle, we're at our best, where everything's in a lot more balance, and there's this moving synergy of that. So it's just important. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, oh God, I'm really not in a good place, and I've got no period, or my period's a shit show, that's okay. Like, I just want you to know that it's actually okay, and there's stuff you can do about it, and it doesn't have to be this way. Start tracking a cycle. That's the first spot, the first thing you need to know. Because even if you want to do testing, for example, test progesterone, ideally, if you are doing some sort of ovulation, say you are ovulating, first of all, we need to know, turn my heater off, need to know, are you ovulating? And if you are, can we test progesterone and see what it is? And ideally, we want to test progesterone day 21, which is 7 days after ovulation. But if you're not ovulating on day 21, there's no point testing ovulating day 14. There's no point testing day 21. Okay, so that's a lot to take on, but the take-home message is track cycle. So how do I track my cycle? Right, so there's a really good app called Kindara. I really like Kindara. You can track temperature on there, which is why I like it. Get a double-digit thermometer, put a reminder in your phone. I'm not going to lie, like, it does take effort to do it, and you don't need to do it all the time. There are also some amazing temperature things, ovulation temperatures, thermometers now. They're not cheap, but if you want to go down that path, it is worth doing, so you can just see that, and it makes it a lot easier. It puts the data into the app. It's pretty cool. I don't have one. I want to get one, but I don't have one yet. And measure your temp, and you can see when your temp jumps. The Kindara has a whole forum on there too, which is really cool. And you can see what other people's look like, and you can ask questions and stuff. It's really awesome. So that's really cool to track it, and then going, oh yeah, I can see it if over a few months, or if you don't get it right, you'll sort of know. Or if there's something going on, you're like, oh, maybe I'm not ovulating, or I'm ovulating late, or da-da-da. So just, it takes practice. It's also important to note when you're intimate, and then you can note down your period and stuff as well. Look, there's heaps of different apps, but I think it's important to start tracking your symptoms. And if you've never done this before and you've got cycle issues, or you are concerned about contraception or fertility, you've got to know when you ovulate. It's just, there's no way around it. There's other things, like people have, like strips that they can pee on and stuff to test ovulation as well. That is more of a pregnancy thing, but people do it too. So there's a few different options, but just start with the app. Like, just get an app, start tracking your cycle, get a thermometer, and just go, yeah, when am I ovulating? Let's see. And so then you can start to get a bit of an indicator of what's going on in your body. And learn to appreciate how amazing our bodies are, because we as women have this feedback system every month that tells us how we're going and how healthy we are. Men don't have that. So that's pretty cool. And when you start to realize how much different stuff goes on in your body all in the space of a month, you're like, wow, that's actually really interesting. And it's really cool. And thank God I don't have to think about it. And so if you're watching this and you're really frustrated, or you're feeling depleted, or you're like, I'm exhausted, it's okay. Just know that there's something you can do about it. And I hope this gives you hope, but just start bringing awareness into and tracking your symptoms. The same with digestive symptoms, I say, and you can do it in the same app. Essentially, like, you can write little notes of like, yeah, like, these are the symptoms I had. You might want to also do a food diary, but, you know, often with women, bloating, pain, PMS, sometimes it can be confusing going, okay, is that a PMS symptom or is it a digestive symptom? Am I more sensitive to different food? And they're not, some women aren't sure because they're not even aware of when, other symptoms, maybe it's PMS, I'm not sure. Okay, well, let's just start with getting acquainted with when your cycle is, so that you can then start to make that connection with your body and start to bring more awareness into your body. The other thing is, before I go, is if you have got symptoms or you are going through some hormonal imbalances stuff, just become aware of the stories that you're saying to yourself about your body as well. Like, bring some gratitude in. What I'm trying to say is bring some gratitude into your body and for the job it's doing for you. And if it's not doing it how you think it should, you know, we want to use it as feedback. I have this conversation a lot with skin clients, because it can be so frustrating when you've got skin issues and you're like, oh, just fix it. But I just want it gone. I just want it fixed. I get it, but it's our body speaking to us, because our body speaks to us in whispers. And so the whispers will get louder and louder. I have experienced this because I had a kidney. I had a kidney tumor almost 11 years ago in the beginning of October. And I ignored the whispers for a long time until I got yelled at really big, and then had to get an organ taken out. So this is feedback for us. You know, it's our responsibility to embrace that and enjoy it and really appreciate our cycle. And if you don't appreciate your cycle, you think your period's a hindrance, shift the perspective. I want you to change the way that you're viewing it, because it is this beautiful gift, and fertility actually is a gift of health, and not everyone has that. And so you can start to then appreciate when things do go well, and when things start to shift and change as you're on your health journey, and really embrace that. And as you then go through and start to go through finishing your reproductive years, you can then also start to embrace that whole menopausal journey as well, from a very, very different perspective, because I see a lot of women, for good reason, if their cycle hasn't been healthy, ovulation can also be a bit of a bitch. So I think it's important from that perspective as well, and I didn't really touch on that, is, you know, we want to go through our years without, ideally you want a fairly pain-free, drama-free menopause too. You're not going to get that if your cycle isn't healthy, if your levels aren't healthy, all of that. It's not going to happen. So it's important now to really get on top of that. And if you are menopausal or perimenopausal, there's stuff you can do as well for that, to improve that. Don't feel like it's out of your control. It's totally in your control. So I hope you found that helpful. If you've got any questions, please like it. Please comment below, and I will see you all next week. Ciao. Have a good night.